Every extraordinary life begins with one moment of courage, one decision to step beyond what feels safe. That's what I want to talk with you about today. The simple truth that without risk, there is no story worth telling. Think about your life right now. Think about the parts you're most proud of. The achievements that make you smile when you remember them. I can almost guarantee that behind each one is a moment when you took a chance, when you did something that scared you. Success loves courage. It rewards those willing to venture into unknown territory. And yet so many people live their entire lives trying to avoid risk. They make safe choices. They stay in jobs they don't love because the paycheck is reliable. They remain in relationships that don't fulfill them because starting over feels too hard. They put their dreams on a shelf because pursuing them might mean facing rejection or failure. But at the end of such a life, what story will you have to tell? I stayed safe. I avoided discomfort. I never failed. Is that the legacy you want to leave? Is that the example you want to set? I've spent decades studying successful people. I've interviewed thousands of high achievers across every industry, and not one of them got where they are by playing it safe all the time, not one. Let me share a personal story with you. When I was younger, I had nothing. No high school diploma, no money, no prospects. I was washing dishes in a small restaurant, barely making enough to get by. But I was hungry for something more. One day I made a decision that changed everything. I decided to quit my job and take a commission-only position selling real estate. Everyone told me I was crazy. You have no experience, they said. You have no connections. You have no safety net. They were right about all of that. What they didn't understand was that I had something more valuable. I had the willingness to risk failure for the chance at something better. Those first months were harder than I could have imagined. I worked 12-hour days. I faced rejection after rejection. There were nights I couldn't sleep because I was worried about paying my rent. There were mornings I had to give myself pep talks just to get out of bed and try again. But I kept going. I learned everything I could about real estate. I made call after call. I knocked on door after door. And eventually, things started to change. I made my first sale, then another, then another. That decision to leave security for opportunity was the first of many risks I've taken throughout my career. Each one has taught me something valuable. Each one has moved me forward. Each one has become part of my story. Now, why do so many people avoid taking risks? The answer is simple. We're programmed to seek safety. Our brains are designed to protect us from danger. This made perfect sense when we were living in caves and worrying about predators. Physical safety meant survival. But in today's world, the biggest threats to our fulfillment aren't physical. They're psychological. Fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, fear of looking foolish. These fears keep us trapped in situations that may be safe, but that slowly drain the life from our days. There's a cost to playing it safe that few people talk about. It's the slow erosion of self-respect that happens when you know you're capable of more but choose not to try. It's the quiet dissatisfaction that builds when you settle for less than you want. It's the regret that accumulates when you say no to opportunities because they scare you. Research shows that at the end of their lives, people regret the risks they didn't take far more than the ones they did. Even if those risks led to failure, they regret the business they never started. The relationship they were too afraid to pursue. The move to a new city they talked themselves out of. The creative project they kept putting off until someday. This doesn't mean you should be reckless. There's a big difference between taking thoughtful risks and making impulsive decisions. Smart risk takers evaluate their options. They do their homework. They prepare as much as possible. But then, and this is crucial, they act even though success isn't guaranteed. Let's talk about the relationship between risk and reward. There's a direct correlation between the two. The potential rewards of any venture are usually proportional to the risks involved. Think about it, if something has huge potential benefits and no risk, everyone would. The very fact that something involves risk means fewer people will attempt it, which creates opportunity for those who will. Low risk typically equals low reward. Medium risk might create medium rewards, but the biggest, most life-changing opportunities almost always come with significant risk attached. This is true in business, relationships, creative pursuits, virtually every area of life. Consider some of the most successful companies today. Amazon began as an online bookstore when most people weren't comfortable entering their credit card information on the internet. Apple introduced products like the iPod and iPhone that industry experts said would fail. Netflix moved from mailing DVDs to streaming content when streaming wasn't yet mainstream. The founders of these companies took enormous risks. They invested time, money, and reputation in ideas that might not have worked. They faced criticism and skepticism, but they believed in their vision enough to move forward despite the uncertainty. And that willingness to embrace risk changed not just their lives, but our entire world. Or consider people who've achieved greatness in other fields. Muhammad Ali risked his championship title and faced imprisonment by refusing to be drafted during the Vietnam War based on his principles. J.K. Rowling was a single mother on welfare when she devoted herself to writing Harry Potter, with no guarantee anyone would publish it. Astronauts literally risk their lives every time they venture into space. These individuals didn't achieve extraordinary things by making safe choices. They did it by being willing to put something valuable on the line: comfort, security, reputation, sometimes even personal safety, because they believed in what they were doing. Your own heroes, whoever they may be, have similar stories. Behind every success story is a person who took risks when it would have been easier not to. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to risk everything all at once. Risk-taking is a muscle that grows stronger with use. You start small and build your way up to bigger challenges. The person who's never taken a risk shouldn't start by quitting their job and investing their life savings in a business idea. That's like trying to run a marathon when you've never jogged around the block. Instead, begin with smaller risks that push you just beyond your comfort zone. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting when you usually stay quiet. Maybe it's taking a class in something you've always wanted to learn, but thought you wouldn't be good at. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Each time you take a small risk and survive, which you almost certainly will, you build confidence. You prove to yourself that you can handle challenge and uncertainty. You expand your comfort zone bit by bit until things that once seemed terrifying start to feel manageable. Let's talk about the psychology of risk-taking. Our brains process risk in interesting ways. So when faced with a risky decision, the amygdala, the fear center of our brain, activates. It floods our system with stress hormones. It prepares us to fight or flee. This happens automatically before our rational mind even has a chance to evaluate the situation. This means that your initial emotional response to risk is almost always fear, regardless of whether the risk is actually dangerous. Your brain doesn't immediately distinguish between physical threats like a predator and psychological ones like the possibility of embarrassment or failure. It just knows something feels uncertain, and uncertainty might mean danger. The key is to recognize this fear response for what it is, a remnant of our evolutionary past that isn't always relevant to our modern lives. Just because something feels scary doesn't mean it's actually dangerous. In fact, that feeling of fear of butterflies in your stomach, of your heart beating faster, is often a sign that you're about to do something important, something that could change your life for the better. Successful people aren't fearless. They feel fear just like everyone else. The difference is that they've learned to act despite the fear. They understand that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important than fear. Now, how do you determine which risks are worth taking? How do you distinguish between foolish gambles and smart risks that can move your life forward? This is where strategic thinking comes in. Every potential risk can be evaluated using a simple framework. First, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen if this doesn't work out? Be honest about the potential downside. Would you lose money, time, face temporary embarrassment, damage a relationship? Understanding the true nature of what you're risking helps you make better decisions. Next, ask, how likely is this worst case scenario? Many times we catastrophize. We imagine the absolute worst outcome and then act as if it's inevitable, when in reality it might be highly unlikely. For asking, the worst that happened, could I recover? Most failures are not permanent. Most mistakes can be fixed. Most setbacks can become comebacks with the right attitude and effort. Finally, I gain if things go well. Consider not just the immediate benefits, but the long-term ones. How might this risk, if successful, open doors for you? What might you learn even if things don't go perfectly? How might it change how you see yourself? When you go through this analysis, many risks that initially seem too scary start to look more reasonable. You realize that the potential upside often far outweighs the potential downside. You see that failure, while uncomfortable, would not be devastating. You understand that even if things don't work out as hoped, you'd gain valuable experience and information. Let me give you an example. Say you're considering starting a side business while keeping your day job. The worst case, you invest some money and time and the business doesn't take off. The likelihood of total failure is reduced because you're keeping your regular income. Your ability to recover is strong because you're not risking your entire financial stability. And the potential upside is enormous. Additional income, the freedom of working for yourself, valuable skills gained, and possibly even a new career path. When you break it down this way, the risk starts to look much more like an opportunity than a threat. Now let's address the biggest obstacle to taking meaningful risks with fear of failure. This fear keeps more people stuck than perhaps any other factor. We worry that if we try something and don't succeed, it means something negative about us, that we're not capable, that we're not worthy, that we don't have what it takes. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of what failure actually is. Failure isn't a character judgment. It's not a final verdict on your potential or your worth. It's simply feedback. It's information about what didn't work, which brings you one step closer to discovering what will work. Thomas Edison famously made thousands of unsuccessful attempts before inventing a working light bulb. When asked about his failures, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This mindset, seeing failure as discovery rather than defeat, is essential for anyone who wants to accomplish something meaningful. The most successful people in any field have usually failed more times than the average person has even tried. They've been rejected more, heard no more, fallen short more. But they persisted because they understood that each failure was teaching them something valuable. Each setback was making them stronger, smarter, more resilient. If you're not failing occasionally, you're not stretching yourself enough, you're not taking enough risks, you're playing too safe. And a life without failure is almost certainly a life without significant achievement or growth. So how do you build the courage to take risks and face potential failure? It starts with developing a risk-taking mindset. This is a way of seeing the world that embraces uncertainty rather than avoiding it. First, adopt a growth mindset. This concept, developed by psychologist Carol Dweck, involves believing that your abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. When you have a growth mindset, you see challenges as opportunities to improve, not threats to your self-image. You believe that what you're capable of isn't fixed but can expand with effort and experience. Second, focus on what you can control. In any risky situation, there are factors you can influence and factors you can't. Worrying about the uncontrollable elements drains your energy and increases anxiety. Instead, put your attention on what you can do to prepare, to adapt, to respond effectively regardless of what happens. Third, build a support network. Risk-taking is easier when you have people in your corner who believe in you, who can offer advice and encouragement, who can help you recover if things don't go as planned. Surround yourself with individuals who inspire you to be courageous, not those who reinforce your fear. Fourth, practice self-compassion. Be as kind to yourself as you would be to a good friend. Recognize that taking risks means you'll sometimes fall short. When that happens, don't beat yourself up. Instead, acknowledge the effort it took to try, learn what you can from the experience, and then move forward. Fifth, connect with your why. Get crystal clear about the reasons behind the risks you're considering. When you're deeply connected to the purpose driving your actions, fear becomes less powerful. You can say to yourself, yes, I'm scared, but this matters too much to let fear stop me. Let's talk about practical strategies for building your risk tolerance day by day. Like any skill, courage grows with practice. Here's some daily habits that can help. Start your day with a small risk. Maybe it's trying a new breakfast food. Maybe it's taking a different route to work. Maybe it's reaching out to someone you admire but have been too intimidated to contact. These tiny steps outside your comfort zone signal to your brain that uncertainty is not something to be feared. Keep a risk journal. At the end of each day, write down one risk you took, however small. Note what happened as a result. Over time, you'll create a record of your growing courage and the positive outcomes that often follow when you dare to step beyond what feels comfortable. Celebrate attempts, not just outcomes. Reward yourself for having the courage to try, regardless of how things turn out. This reinforces the behavior of risk-taking itself, which is what ultimately leads to growth and opportunity. Use visualization. Athletes use this technique to prepare for competition, and you can use it to prepare for risks. Imagine yourself taking the action you're considering. See yourself handling challenges that arise. Picture a positive outcome. This mental rehearsal can reduce anxiety and increase confidence. Find risk-taking role models. Study people who have taken similar risks to those you're considering. Learn how they prepared, how they handled setbacks, what they would do differently. Their experiences can provide a roadmap for your own journey. Practice healthy stress management, meditation, exercise, adequate sleep, good nutrition. All these support your ability to think clearly and act courageously when facing risks. When your body and mind are in good condition, you're better equipped to handle the stress that comes with uncertainty. Now, let's talk about what happens when risks don't pay off, because sometimes they won't. Sometimes you'll take a chance and things won't go as hoped. The business will struggle. The relationship will end. The creative project won't find its audience. These moments test us. They reveal our character and our resilience. They show us what we're made of. The key is to fail forward, to extract value from every failure so that it becomes an investment rather than a loss. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this experience make me better? What would I do differently next time? Some of the most valuable business lessons I've ever learned came from ventures that didn't succeed. Some of my deepest insights about relationships came from ones that didn't last. Some of my greatest growth as a person came through difficult periods when things weren't working out as I'd planned. The ability to learn and grow from failure rather than be defeated by it is perhaps the single most important factor in long-term success. It's what separates those who achieve their dreams from those who give up on them. Now, something important to remember. No failure is wasted if you learn from it. No risk is foolish if it teaches you something valuable. Even the risks that don't pay off in the way you hope can pay off in wisdom, in character, in resilience. So where do you go from here? How do you begin creating a life rich with meaningful risks and compelling stories? Start today. Start now. Identify one risk you've been avoiding out of fear. It doesn't have to be enormous, just something that stretches you a bit beyond what feels comfortable. Then take action. Make the call. Send the email, sign up for the class, have the conversation. Take the first step, however small it might seem. Remember that every great achievement, every worthwhile accomplishment, every meaningful change begins with a single decision to try something uncertain, to venture beyond the known, to risk failure for the possibility of something better. Life is too short for playing small. It's too precious to waste on what ifs and if onlys. You deserve to look back on your days and see a story worth telling, a story of courage, of growth, of meaningful contribution. Without risk, there is no story. Without courage, there is no growth. Without the willingness to face uncertainty, there can be no greatness. So ask yourselves, what risk am I being called to take right now? What story am I being invited to create? What version of myself am I being challenged to become? Then summon your courage and take that first step. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Embrace the uncertainty and move forward regardless. Take the risk that might just change everything. Because on the other side of that risk might be exactly what you've been searching for, the opportunity you've been waiting for, the life you've been dreaming of. The greatest risk of all is not taking any risks. It's playing it so safe that you never discover what you're truly capable of. It's settling for less than you want because going for more feels too scary. Don't let that be your story. Choose courage over comfort. Choose growth over safety. Choose the rich, rewarding, sometimes messy adventure of a life lived boldly. No risk, no story. What story will you create with the one wild and precious life you've been given? The decision is yours, and it begins today with whatever next brave step you choose to take. Remember, every person you admire, every success story that inspires you began with someone who was willing to risk failure for the chance at something extraordinary. You can be that person too. You already have everything you need. The only questions are you ready to begin? Your future is waiting on the other side of your comfort zone. Your greatest achievements are waiting beyond the borders of what feels safe. Your most meaningful contributions are waiting just past the edge of certainty. Go there. Take the risk. Create your story. The world needs what only you can bring. And you need the growth that only courage can create. No risk, no story. Choose risk. Choose adventure. Choose a life that will someday become a story worth telling. I believe in your potential. I believe in your courage. I believe in your capacity to create something remarkable with your one irreplaceable life. Now go take that first risk. Today. Right now, your story is waiting to unfold. Many people want guarantees before they act. They want certainty their efforts will pay off. But here's a truth that successful people understand. Certainty doesn't exist. Not in business, not in relationships, not in any area of life that truly matters. The need for certainty is actually a trap. It keeps you stuck. It prevents progress. It stops innovation. Think about this. If you wait until all possible risks are eliminated before you act, you'll be waiting forever. And while you wait, opportunities pass you by. Life passes you by. I once talked with a man who had spent 20 years in a job he disliked. Why stay so long? I asked him. His answer was revealing. I kept thinking things would get better, he said. Besides, I had good benefits, a reliable paycheck. It seemed too risky to leave. When I asked him how he felt about that decision now, he didn't hesitate. It was the biggest mistake of my life, he said. I gave 2 decades to a company that didn't value me, doing work that didn't fulfill me. That wasn't playing it safe. That was giving up on myself. What looks like safety is often the riskiest choice of all. Staying in situations that diminish you, that prevent your growth, that keep you small, that's the real danger. The question isn't whether you'll take risks. The question is which risks you'll take. Will you risk change, challenge, and possible short-term failure? Or will you risk long-term regret, unfulfillment, and the slow death of your dreams? When you frame it that way, the choice becomes clear. Another barrier to risk-taking is perfectionism. So many people believe they need to have everything figured out before they start. They need the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect circumstances. But this thinking leads to paralysis. It becomes an excuse for inaction. The truth is, you don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You don't need to have every detail worked out. You just need enough clarity to begin. The rest will reveal itself as you move forward. I started my first business with no formal business education. I wrote my first book with no training as a writer. I gave my first speech with no experience as a speaker. In each case, I was far from perfect when I began. I made countless mistakes, but I started. And through action, imperfect action, I learned, improved, and eventually mastered these skills. Had I waited until I felt completely ready, I would still be waiting today. This brings me to an essential principle. Action precedes clarity. Many people think they need complete clarity before they can act, but that's backward. The clarity you seek comes through action, not before it. It's like driving at night. Your headlights don't illuminate the entire journey at once. They show you enough of the road to keep moving forward. As you advance, new sections of the road become visible. Your path is revealed step by step, mile by mile. Risk-taking works the same way. Each risk you take, each step beyond your comfort zone illuminates the next part of your path. Questions get answered, opportunities appear, doors open, but only after you start moving. Another common obstacle is comparison. We look at others who have taken similar risks and achieved great success, and we think that won't happen for me. I'm not as talented, connected, gacky-lucky as they are. This kind of thinking is poison to action. It creates a false story that others succeed because they have some magic quality you lack, rather than because they were simply willing to try, to fail, to learn, and to persist. The people you admire, the ones who have created remarkable lives, aren't fundamentally different from you. They don't have special powers or extraordinary advantages. What they have is the willingness to take risks that others won't take, the courage to face fears that others let stop them, the persistence to keep going when others give up. You have that same potential within you, the capacity for courage, the ability to grow through challenge, the resilience to bounce back from setbacks. These qualities aren't given only to a select few. They're available to anyone willing to develop them. Risk-taking also requires faith, not necessarily religious faith, though that can be a source of strength for many. But faith in yourself, faith in your ability to handle whatever comes. Faith that even if things don't work out as planned, you'll find a way forward. This kind of faith isn't blind optimism. It's not denying the possibility of failure or hardship. It's the deep knowing that regardless of outcomes, you have what it takes to adapt, to learn, to keep moving toward what matters to you. This faith grows stronger with each risk you take and survive. Each time you face a fear and come out the other side. Each time you recover from a setback and find a new way forward. I've faced many moments in my life when I had to decide whether to play it safe or take a chance on something better. In retrospect, I can honestly say I've never regretted the risks I took, even when they didn't work out as I hoped. What I regret are the chances I didn't take, the opportunities I let slip away because I was too afraid to try. Don't let fear make your decisions for you. Don't let comfort be your primary goal. Don't let the opinions of others determine what you're willing to attempt. Your life is too valuable for that. Your potential is too great. Your contribution is too needed. Take the risk, start the business, write the book, have the conversation, make the change, apply for the position, pursue the dream. Your story is waiting to be written. Make it one of courage, growth, and meaningful contribution. Make it one that inspires others to face their own fears and pursue their own dreams. No risk, no story. The pen is in your hand. What will you write with the blank pages before you?